being here. We have been told that we are the children of the future. I believe in the power of education. I believe that education gives us the opportunity to acquire skills to be productive citizens. I believe that education is an essential tool which can be used to not only reinforce knowledge, but to empower people and promote their confidence, development, and motivations. I believe, as Nelson Mandela said, that the children of today are the leaders of tomorrow, and education is a very important weapon to prepare children for their future roles as leaders of the community. Unfortunately, not everyone in the world has the privilege of education, which I believe should not be considered a privilege, but instead a fundamental right of all humans. To reflect together about this, I would like to invite you all to think about a little girl whose dreams got shattered by her own parents, stopping her pursuit of a higher education. She was the first in her class, joyful and kind. Her story lies very close to my heart. Her name is Brooke. Remember that. Her name is Brooke. She was a beautiful and radiant girl who loved to play and go to school. One day, her father introduced her to a man a few years older than her and told her that she would be his bride. That day changed her destiny. She was 15 years old when she got married to a man she never knew. She was confused and didn't know what was going on until she left the house that she grew up in to go to her new home with her husband. She cried and begged, but no one listened to her. She was terrified of her unknown future. She was just a little girl who didn't know what marriage was about. She was a 10th grader. She had dreams, finishing school and becoming a lawyer. Her dreams were usurped, undone. Her childhood was stolen. Brooke is my grandmother, and she was a child bride. Her story inspired me to do more research and dig more into the complexity of the issues of child marriage by gathering findings as to why global citizens should care. I was deeply disturbed by the extent of this global epidemic and how it pushes young girls into a spiraling sequence of missed dreams and opportunities, affecting their education, health, and economic opportunities. I realized that my grandmother's story is not uncommon. She is just one example out of the 15 million girls who are forced to be prematurely married every year around the world. Good afternoon. My name is Ryan Safiry, and I am a senior at Deerfield Academy. I appreciate the opportunity today to share with you the stories of girls like my grandmother and the serious problem of child marriage that strikes at the heart of many homes across the globe. I was born and raised in Boston, Massachusetts. My Moroccan roots give me unique perspectives on the Western-oriented societies of the Arab world. I have traveled extensively to Morocco and Europe and have truly enjoyed my experiences there, learning about the people and the cultures. I have also traveled extensively and visited Egypt, Jordan, and South Korea, and have observed and learned of the different cultures, religions, and languages that all exist in those respective places. Last summer, I volunteered in a humanitarian project in Morocco, where I volunteered at a local hospital and met Zineb, a 13-year-old girl who was carrying her newborn. That image of a child carrying a baby stuck in my mind, and I felt compelled to look deeper into why something like this would happen. Today, I want to focus on the core of the secret world of child brides and focus on why something like this would happen and why girls are forced into marriage every single day. The goal of my talk is to examine deeply into the hidden world of child brides and promote awareness on the issues of child marriage and abuse of human rights. I find it essential to bring attention to crimes that are hidden in plain sight and affect millions of girls around the world. When I was growing up, I remember visiting Morocco every summer to go visit my grandparents. I enjoyed looking at the diverse range of different cultures and the melting pot of people and the physical landscapes and the nature. But under the country's rich nature and diverse landscapes, beaches, waterfalls, and beautiful deserts, there are the untold stories of many girls, the untold story of child marriage. When I was 15 years old, I remember one afternoon sitting in the living room, chatting with my grandmother about my high school life back home in America, her eyes glistening at me with a hopeful tone of engagement, interest, and wonder. Behind her eyes, she also displayed what seemed to be a slight feeling of angst. I recall her asking me what my favorite aspect of my high school was. When I told her that I was extremely fortunate to be able to attend a prestigious high school that provided me with an exceptional learning environment and some of the most diverse, intellectual, and invested peers and faculty I've ever met, she told me that she was very happy for me. But, she added, at the same time, she felt ashamed that she herself was married at 15 years old and had to miss out on so many opportunities through education. She told me how she had one wish, that she could continue her education and follow her aspirations, but how her early marriage truly interrupted many of her goals. Listening to the story of how my grandmother met my grandfather was full of turbulent feelings and gave me a better understanding of her culture. Her story was a cameo of resilience and courage because she was brave enough to overcome her anger and advocate for other victims in her community. I was very proud of this, and I wanted to look more into it. Her father gave her away because he thought that doing so would protect her and assure for her a better future. However, he didn't realize that marrying his daughter away made her feel worthless and set her up for a life of feeling that way. Despite her sad experience of being a child bride, my grandmother was very lucky because the man that she married was truly good to her and truly loved her. But what about the 15 million other child brides who are married prematurely at the same age as her every year, and the 650 million other current child brides who live around the world, who are often exposed to beatings and neglect constantly? Girls who undergo forced marriage have their entire worlds interrupted, and one of the most impactful long-term implications of their wedlock can be found in their lack of education. Missing out on schooling at such a young age prevents girls from reaching their long-term goals and sets them on different paths regarding careers and passions. Most of the time, when a girl gets married, she is expected to drop out of school. Yet, education is itself a way to prevent child marriage and a key to attacking it, because girls who stay within and pursue education are significantly less likely to get married early and have children, while girls with no education are 3 times more likely to get married before the age of 18. While education is a significant sacrifice to child marriage, it is also a stepping stone to combating it, and we must focus on the root causes of this issue that result on a girl being forced into marriage prematurely every 2 seconds somewhere in the world, as reported by UNICEF. The catalysts for this problem are found in the core of gender inequality and poverty norms. Child brides count the highest rates in countries such as Pakistan, Niger, Somalia, and India, and many more in regions spanning from the Middle East to Latin America, South Asia to Europe. Now, let's take a step back from the root causes of child marriage and take a look deeper into the risks and consequences of its practice, beginning with how it can permanently impact the health of a girl. For example, many young brides suffer from severe cases of obstetric fistula, one of the most tragic childbirth injuries due to obstructed labor, which can have devastating consequences on a woman's life. This occurs when there is a constant pressure of the baby's head in the birth canal, and the tissues within a young girl's organs are torn due to the size of a baby. This causes severe pain and serious injury that involves an abdominal opening between the rectum and the vagina, or the bladder and the vagina, resulting in uncontrolled leakage of urine and feces. Not only do girls with this experience have immense pain, but they also suffer from emotional distress, shame, anxiety, social segregation, and embarrassment because they themselves cannot control the leakage of urine and feces in their own body. This seriously descends a girl deeper into a descent of social problems throughout her life, and they are often rejected by their husbands and divorced because of their conditions. Many child brides and victims of obstetric fistula reported that their husbands and families rejected them because they couldn't tolerate the constant bad odor of the urine incontinence. It renders the girls numbed as they require constant care and much of the time remain infertile for their entire lives. Farhia Mohammed Farah, a Somali woman, was 18 years old when she gave birth to her first child. But after developing a severe case of obstetric fistula, she was deemed a social outcast as her husband rejected her and abandoned her alone to take care of her own child. Nobody wants a woman who passes stools all the time and smells, she said. Her condition turned her into what her family considered to be a burden, and she was abandoned by her family. Many families marry off their girls with the perception that doing so lowers the likelihood of them contracting sexually transmitted infections. However, young brides aged 15 and 19 are at an even higher risk of contraction, being up to 8 times more likely to contract HIV alone. The unwarranted sexual relations, often rape, that these young wives undergo leaves them with these conditions and virtually no options to seek help. There is no single solution to stopping child marriage, but there are many steps that we can take to stop it and prevent its practice. Child marriage is a crime that transcends cultural boundaries across multiple countries. Underage girls are dragged into marrying someone they never met against their will by a member of their families due to religion, culture, or economic hardship. Forcing a young girl to marry means that she must leave her school, her family, and her friends to be transferred over to her husband like a piece of property. Child marriage dehumanizes these young girls of their freedom and makes them feel as if they are only meant to serve their husbands and have children. Child marriage can have severely adverse effects on the mental, physical, and psychosocial well-beings of its victims. Now, I want to tell you the stories of a few girls who were brave enough to voice their misfortunes. Nora Dolly was a 9-year-old girl from Yemen when her parents forced her to marry a man in his 30s by the name of Faiz Ali Thamar. In February 2008, her father, a poor shepherd, made a deal with Faiz to marry his daughter in exchange for about $750. Yemeni law at the time dictated that marriage of children under the age of 15 was illegal, yet loopholes allowed families to marry off younger children under the condition that sexual activity did not occur. Yet, Najud was raped repeatedly by her husband. After surviving months of abuse and beatings, Ali was finally able to escape and take a taxi to the local courthouse. Frightened, this little girl caught the attention of a judge who granted her a divorce after listening to her story. She was divorced at 10 years old, breaking with the tribal tradition. Her father and ex-husband did not get prosecuted. Her story caught attention worldwide, and today Ali is an activist against child marriage and helping many victims of child marriage worldwide. Plan International UK reported the story of a girl named Sadia from Bangladesh who was a child bride at 14 years old. She was a student and loved math. She dreamed of becoming a teacher, but one day, coming back from school, her parents surprised her by telling her that she would not be able to go back because they had planned her wedding for a few days later. It was terrible for me to have to sit inside and watch my friends going to school, but I did not complain and did what my parents told me, she said. Helpless, she couldn't stop crying when her mother and relatives went on happy to go with the ceremony of her wedding. That day, she was treated like a doll. They washed her, dressed her up, and put mint in her mouth. Another mother familiar with the situation explained, she knew it was wrong to marry her daughter very early, but marriage is seen as protection, and it reduces the risk of being sexually active outside of the house. According to UNICEF, in Bangladesh, 52% of girls under the age of 18 get married. This is a staggeringly high amount and difficult to process. Now, let's take a look at how this issue may strike a little closer to home than we might have thought. It might be surprising to know that child marriage is actually legal in the United States, in 48 states of the US, along with the District of Columbia and Puerto Rico, with Delaware and New Jersey being the only states to have outlawed it completely, both having done so recently in 2018. 18 of these legal states have no minimum age, and requirements for marriage typically involve consent by the children's parents. Yet, it is a manipulative concept of marriage, and a true problem in the United States happening right in our backyards. Now, here are some facts about child marriage in the US, according to official state statistics. 207,468 children under 18 years old were married in the US between 2000 and 2015. 3 10-year-old girls were married to men aged 24, 25, and 31 in Tennessee in 2001. And in New Jersey alone, 3,500 children were married between 1995 and 2012. Legal abuses which allow for the continuation of child marriage actually happen worldwide. For example, in India, despite the Prohibition of Child Marriage Act of 2006, parents still practice this traditional ritual of marriage, as over 12 million children are currently married under the age of 10 years old. In fact, India has among the highest rates of child marriage in the world, with 27% of girls being married before they reach the age of 18. Brooke, Najud, and Sadia's stories are only a few out of millions around the globe. Other girls don't have the opportunity to voice their experiences in the same impactful way. We should all take a few moments to recognize their struggles, to bring forth a solution to combat this issue once and for all. It has been proven that promoting education for young girls in countries where child marriage is a prevalent issue can be one of the best solutions to lowering the rates of this sweeping phenomenon and empowering girls. We need to focus on the permanent damage that marriage can bring to young girls. Already in poverty, they are objectified and denied their rights to education, economic opportunities, and happiness, as they are also increasingly susceptible to physical abuse and mental abuse. Hillary Clinton, former Secretary of State of the United States, said, quote, "We know when girls have equal access to quality education in both primary and secondary schools, cycles of poverty are broken, economies grow, glass ceilings cracked, and potential is unleashed." From where I stand today, I want to highlight that men have mothers, daughters, sisters, aunts, and wives, and that we need men today to advocate for women, many of whom don't have a voice. It will only change if men change their approach to women and be better allies to them. The time is now to stand up and raise our voices to protect women and girls and their rights against violence, abuse, and exploitation, as well as promoting the empowerment of women and girls worldwide. So, what can you, sitting in the audience, do to make a difference in the lives of millions of girls who are living through these conditions? You can campaign for gender equality and fight for every girl's right to education. You can start a petition to stop child marriage in your community, or even abroad. My grandmother broke the chain of child marriages in her family by making sure that her daughters didn't experience the same destiny. She said that my own mother got married at 13, and I wanted to make sure that my daughters finished their education and chose who they wanted to get married to. We can also break the chain of child marriages in our families and even beyond. Thank you for listening.